Every leader has bad days. Most pretend they don't. This is the show where leaders stop pretending and start learning. Welcome to the Bad Days Leadership Podcast, where leaders pull back the curtain on decisions they cringe about, rooms they misread, and the failures that shaped everything after. Real leaders, real mistakes, real lessons. Because you can't become a great leader without a few bad days. Welcome, everybody, to the show today. I am so glad that you have joined us. Our guest today is Amanda Box, my friend, Amanda Box. Amanda is the founder of Box Communications, where she is a self-proclaimed communication evangelist and the unleasher of the awesome. She trains and coaches individuals and teams to improve their communication skills. She's done this for a number of years, and she really helps teams and organizations do so much to become more productive, to reduce conflict, and just to make a better difference in the world. And so she's been coaching, training, speaking, consulting within a wide range of businesses over the years. And I'm so glad that she is able to be on the show with us today. Amanda, welcome to the Bad Days Leadership Podcast.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here. I know this podcast is going to provide so many great resources for people out there. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you so much. We're glad you're here. It is going to be a lot of fun. So, one of the things I know and I'm learning as a consultant is that I've always loved the stories that consultants and trainers have. And I suspect that in your work as a trainer, consultant, speaker, you've been in different types of organizations all over the country. And I suspect you, as many consultants and trainers, you have some of the best stories. You get to see things from a different perspective. You get to swoop in, see some things, help people navigate challenges, talk through things, learn and grow, but you also get to observe. And I know I appreciate the opportunity just to observe and see what's going on. And so I suspect that you, in your career, have definitely seen some of the good, the bad, and maybe the ugly when it comes to life inside organizations, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, today we're going to focus on the bad and the ugly. That may sound weird, but no, we're going to take a look at some of those maybe lessons that you've learned over the years, and then we're also going to try to learn from them, right? I mean, we appreciate the stories, we appreciate the craziness that goes on in the world around us, but what we really want to take and help our listeners hear are the lessons that we've learned from that. And so, I suspect you have some really good bad stories, don't you?
Yes. Unfortunately, I think we learn more from those stories. And if I'm there, it means there's something to work on. If everything's going beautifully, then people are just celebrating the wins and going on. When things are not going so great, that's when people really start looking at the communication and they're thinking, maybe we better get Amanda in here and work on some things. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's where I come in.
no doubt. How long have you been doing the consulting and training stuff?
A really long time, a
Yeah.
really long time, 25 plus by now.
Yeah. All right. Well, you have seen a lot and you have experienced a lot and you've helped a lot of people navigate a lot of different situations inside the organization. But I'm curious as we begin here, was there ever a leader that maybe that you observed or have worked with that you could just tell was making life miserable for the people around them? And maybe you've got some examples or some stories of that. We'd love to hear from that. And then maybe as you've worked with them or seen them over time, maybe there's something you've learned from
Sure, I have a couple that come to mind right off the bat when you're saying miserable.
them. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we do have too many of those stories, but, there was a coach. He was part of an athletic program. I'm gonna be super vague, about all
No,
the
you have to be. That's good.
Yeah, I want these people to call me back, but this coach started out the season, the first team meeting, and he handed out this, one pager, 100 ways to have a losing season.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's just
100 ways to have a losing season. All
yeah,
right.
And, as a previous coach yourself, can you imagine going into your first team meeting and handing out something so depressing? I mean, that just sets the tone right
It
there.
definitely sets a tone, like, "We don't have much to work for here, it's only gonna get worse, or it's only gonna get better maybe, I don't know, but you
It's
just you."
I think it's another way of saying, "Hey, losers," you're and I don't know, I thought that was especially bad. Then, one of the things too that happens to me is I'm working with everyone in any industry because communication is so critical to every other part of success there, that a lot of people will just share their horror stories. So, some of these
Mm,
are not even mine, but one in particular, there was one of my clients, she used to work, and that's a key point right there. She doesn't work there anymore, but she kinda worked in this, like it wasn't, um, a traditional call center, but it was like a help center. So there were lots of phones, they're in cubicles, and she said that she and her colleagues would give and take a lot of information, like, they would provide support for each other because it was just faster. And they had a supervisor who could help, but there's only one supervisor, and maybe 25, 30 people on the team. Okay, well, the boss, whoever that was, decided there's too much chit chat going on. There's just too much talking. And she was saying, yeah, we would talk a little, but we were working. It's not like they were just hanging around telling stories, like we're doing right now. They really were
yeah.
working. And so he put in a new system. They were in cubicles, and you weren't really allowed to talk at all. That's the rule. That's the rule. You're not
Couldn't
allowed.
talk at all,
No, you're
like,
not supposed to be talking.
wow.
You're just wasting time with the convos. And so when you needed help, you're supposed to put this red plastic Solo cup on top of your filing cabinet, and that was the very high-tech signal that you needed help, and when that happened, then, somebody would come help you, but you can imagine that they were talking to each other for efficiency, and if there's one supervisor, not only is it very demeaning to treat adults like kindergartners, which they felt
Right.
that insult, and lack of trust because it was an accusation. You're not working if you're having a conversation, and so they did that system, which failed miserably, and the numbers showed that they went down in productivity by like 25 or 30%. So it was just a crash and burn situation. And as you can imagine too, people leave. Like they're not going to work in a place like that. So that was a
Yeah.
really bad crash and burn situation.
That's interesting. How long ago do you think that was?
It
The
wasn't that long ago.
the
This was
red
a
Solo cup, it's like raising your hand to
it's
talk.
yes,
Wow.
it was so demeaning and just the whole thing was insulting and a terrible idea too. Like, if it works, I'm not gonna push back too hard on that. Like, "Oh, that seems weird, but it's so much faster." Like, I don't think I could really logically argue, but when you're insulting people, you're accusing them of being lazy, which is
Yeah.
what was happening, and not really knowing what's going on. You're just seeing from afar that people are talking to each other, and then you contrast that with other research that says when people have, and I will name this name because it's a good story. It was Bank of America. They do have really large call centers,
Right.
and but retention's tough. And so they started talking to people, doing some real research, and the people that stayed had some rapport, had a little bit of time with their friends. So they changed their break rooms and changed their break schedules so people could have some rapport, a little bit of a socialization, and their numbers went up in the millions. I'll have to look
Wow.
up that exact number, but so anyway, those are very contrasting stories right there.
Yeah, it's like one is just opposite of everything you would think of as a human.
Yeah,
We don't wanna communicate, we don't want any interaction, versus, "Hey, let's put some people together and see what happens,
I
and
know.
let them know each other, and let them have a sense of
I know,
community." I
I
mean,
say
wow.
that all the time. Like, you don't stop being human because you're at work. Like, you're
Right.
still human. Yeah, the human rules still apply.
That's incredible. Those are great stories. I the red Solo cup thing, that kills me.
It's
That's
I just shake
unbelievable.
my head, but she said it like, that's a tough job anyway when you're solving problems on the front lines with people, but she said it just got toxic after that.
Yeah, and just retention problems are
Oh,
just they're so I mean, retention is, like, one of the most underutilized statistic data points, right? I mean, that as companies are I mean, people think about it, but it's so expensive to replace people, to train
Oh, yeah.
all that stuff, and you're just running people off by doing
You're
things
running
like that.
people off. Yeah, you're running people off. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So those were examples that you've seen or heard or had other people share with you. Those are
Yeah.
wonderful. Did you ever see something? Maybe it was in a boss you had yourself. Maybe it was in somebody that you were working with as a consultant or a trainer, where you promised yourself that you would never repeat what they have demonstrated. Right? Like as soon as you saw it, you're like, "That is terrible. I will never do that in my life and in my career." Anything like that ever come up for you?
Well, sure.
Yeah.
I think I don't know that I ever had somebody, like, be truly abusive or, anything,
Sure.
like, criminal like that. But I did have a boss who would just hang on to things. Like, he was super, super detailed, and it came from a good place, but it just stalled out. If he hung on to everything till he had time to do it, then it didn't get done because there's a reason you have a team of people to work on something. And that was pretty frustrating. So, I'm a very high trust person. I'm gonna trust you until you prove you can't be trusted. And then, I don't know if that's, um all the time the absolute best route, but to me, it's a faster route anyway. You're gonna give information faster than just to stall out. So, that was
Sure. No.
that was one thing. I have had a little sabotage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Sabotage. All right.
here
Tell us
and
about
there.
sabotage.
Well, if somebody sets you up to fail or starts throwing around language, when you're new that they know you don't understand. Even I remember this is popping into my mind when I was waitressing in, a place.
Hmm.
Again, being vague, but I had been there a couple of weeks, it was a summer job, and I messed something up. You've only been there 2 weeks, and as a waitress, you're juggling a lot of information and, um, people and
Yeah.
actions, and
A
so I
hard
remember.
job.
Yeah, definitely. One of the line cooks said, "You should know by now," and I had been there 2 weeks.
Mm.
Well, and I was like, "You know what? That is so impatient with somebody who is brand new, to this organization." So, this sabotage of setting you up where you're probably not gonna know what you're doing, to set or even the feeling of being set up to be embarrassed or humiliated or be perceived as incompetent in some way. And, certainly the impatience, that's not gonna build a team. That's gonna make somebody go find another job like we just talked about. So that's the real takeaway there. You wanna bring people in, not run people off. So,
Yeah. So when you go into organizations, and I know you go in and do a lot of training and speaking, and sometimes you kind of embed yourself into these organizations, and you get regular, recurring kinds of connection and monthly conversations and that sort of thing. I know a little bit about what you do there, but when you go into organizations, and are there red flags that kind of you just see immediately, or are there some certain things that you can spot when it comes to red flags in leadership
yes.
that you sense pretty quickly as somebody who gets to be involved in a variety of different types of organizations, that you just automatically see that?
Yeah, for sure. A huge red flag to me is defensiveness.
Mm,
And that can be just a bad habit. Some personalities just challenge whatever you're gonna say. They're just gonna push back on whatever you're gonna say. But if that's perceived as defensiveness and the leader is the one being defensive, then a lot of bad things are gonna follow because you can't defend and listen at the same time. Those don't work. If if I make a mistake as a team member and I am afraid to come to you because of the backlash of what you're gonna say about me or to me, like you're not punching me in the face, but my body is gonna react like that. And so that means I'm gonna start hiding stuff, which is not good. And if somebody is defensive in that way, there's really just no way to get where you wanna go with a specific culture. So leaders have to I think that's one of the biggest things that leaders have to do is edit out the defensiveness because the great ones, they are crazy about information. They're fascinated, they're not frustrated with something, and we could and I know you know this, but there any leadership book that you read, they're gonna say these leaders ask good questions and they don't overreact to the answers. They want any competitive edge. I mean, the athletic world a lot too, and that's why coaches just absolutely consume information about leadership. It's because there's a scoreboard, there are thousands of people watching, there's a very clear win-loss, and so anything that gets them the edge of winning that competition, then it can't be defensive, it has to be very open, and business leaders are the same way, educators, it doesn't matter, whatever leadership position you're in.
So we tell people a couple things that come to mind. Just I've heard this said for years, and I've been saying it for a long time myself. But leaders are lifelong learners.
Yes, yes.
The most impactful, effective leaders are lifelong learners, and so moments where somebody comes in to teach something, they may not agree with everything, but their posture is that I'm here to learn, not
And
here to fight you in
yeah,
what you're saying,
that's
not
right.
because I'm the expert already, right? And you mentioned leadership books. Obviously, we've got one that we have a core principle in the leadership core that we talk about, and that's the idea that you got to be coachable.
Yes, absolutely,
I mean,
and in
you
fact
have to be coachable.
yeah, and that's very much a body language kind of thing. So in communication, it's a learned physical skill, just like playing the guitar or playing basketball, like it's a learned physical thing. So one of the best things you can do to edit out the defensiveness is to edit in a habit of response. And so I mean, I will admit I'm defensive too. Ask my family. And I work on it all the time. And the way I work on it and help my clients work on it is when you're feeling that teeny attack or a little red flag goes up, here's your pocket phrase. And pocket phrases are just words you keep in your pocket to pull out on a awkward moment or a potentially defensive moment, and so mine for that one is just, "Thank you for sharing that." That's my habit to say, "Thank you for sharing that." And I can't you can't do that with a clenched jaw. "Thank you for sharing." I mean, you can, but you wouldn't. And so that gives your brain a second or 2 just to recognize that you do need that information because it's very instinctual to be defensive. When I've worked super hard on something, I'm invested in something, then that defensiveness just means you care. It doesn't work interpersonally. It works if somebody's about to punch you in the face, but with working with other people, the defensiveness is only gonna just cause a lot of damage.
Yeah, that's a good word right there. That the pocket phrase. I love that. I talk about principles that I kind of keep rolling around in my head. The pocket phrase may be a better way to say that. That's so good. So when we talk about bad days, and it's not just the days that we've seen in others, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes we have them ourselves, right? I
Sure.
know people are shocked, but no, we do have bad days, and
Yeah.
we've all had them. Talk to us a little bit about maybe some mistakes that have shown up in some of your less than stellar days, potentially, that have helped shape your current leadership style and your approach to running your company and with your team, and then as you go in and help others as well.
Well, there's no shortage of those things to choose from. But as let's just continue the conversation about defensiveness because I shared I am defensive by nature, and it took me a long time to even realize that, uh, because it's embarrassing. Nobody wants to be defensive. But I had this one client where I was really feeling the scrutiny. So we had this initial meeting. It's my job to go into a group of strangers and connect quickly. Let's go. Let's get everybody engaged in these ideas to make your day better, to make your life better, to make your team stronger. and I've had over 25 years of doing just that. Started when I was a college professor by college freshmen who taught me an awful lot because
Absolutely.
they did not want to be in speech class, and I didn't realize how much they didn't want to be there until I got my evaluations. So that's one failure right there is when I got my evaluations that very first semester, like, I cried for a couple of days because I had poured my little professor heart, into these classes because I understood really what communication could do for them if they could present themselves and their ideas with polish and confidence and just credibility. But wow, I had a lot to learn. I had a lot to learn. I was too smart aleck, I was only 24, so I was barely older than they were. And so when they would, smart off, well, I would smart off back. Well, I was in the position of authority and I thought we were just, just having a little quip, but no, it was embarrassing for them and I didn't want that to happen. So anyway, I learned an awful lot of what not to do. And yeah, it was a hit, but it made me much stronger immediately. So you fast forward to just a couple of years ago, I started working with this one client and we connected quickly, and they asked for an outline and this and that, and so the first meeting went great, but after that, it was awful. Like, they wanted to know every word that was coming out of my mouth, which I don't even know every word that's coming out of my mouth. Generally, clients just want to know that I have a plan. They don't really wanna get in the weeds of that, and so I just wasn't used to the scrutiny, so much so that we did this trial run and it didn't go that well. And so, I got a cold sore, just from the stress of it. And I got there. I got there to what they wanted, but I really had to adjust and really think about what was going on. And what was going on is that this was the first job. I hadn't had a chance to earn their trust. And I think it was a reasonable thing to earn their trust. And when they kept sending things back, I was like, "Okay, let me listen more accurately. Let me see what they're missing here that I'm not showing them that they can trust." And so I was feeling defensive. I was feeling the stress, but more than those things, I wanted to meet the needs of their people because they wouldn't have hired me if it wasn't important, and it was important. It was an important job for them. I was preparing a big group of their people to do something very specific. And so, we finally got there, and I've had multiple jobs with them, and the whole time I was like, "Matt, they're gonna fire me," and really they need to. Like, I'm not the
Mm,
right person, that's how
yeah.
much I was feeling it. But I just kept learning what they wanted and how they wanted it, and they needed to see a lot more tangible information from me, which I thought that was fair, and then later I learned that they were getting a lot of pressure from the top. So it wasn't just some pointed thing of trying to make me miserable, which is kinda how those stories are told sometimes, like,
Right.
"You're a control freak, you're this, you're that." No, they were feeling pressure. They wanted to make sure I was gonna deliver on what I and they weren't seeing what they needed to. So, it had a happy ending, but every time I worked with them for a couple of years, I would get a cold sore. And
Wow.
it was just this stress, but that did help me get better. It was just, just took a little more doing. And people like us, Matt, who we're just in front of thousands of strangers all the time, like, we make friends easily, so it was just an unusual experience for me in that way, but it was good. It was good.
Yeah, it's almost like the process to refinement, right, is not the process you want to go through, but I mean, there's something, I mean, biblical about, going through the things you gotta persevere in order to produce the character that, I mean, there I don't wanna over theological, I don't wanna make this too theological in terms of what you're experiencing in your work world there, but the idea is that you had to go through something to come out on the other side for them, and they were getting pressured, right, so that they could produce something on the other side, and I think sometimes people forget the systemic nature of, what's going on in organizations. I mean, there are things that are connected. Sometimes we don't even see how the connections, right?
Yes, and a lot of that comes from like, it could have gotten conflicted, but I remember one meeting where pocket phrases really saved me just from having these habits. They were trying to be careful, and I said, "Hey, I wanna get this right. Say what you need to say." And that humility saved me, because I wanted to
Mhm.
do a good job better than I wanted anything else. So, if it's a hit for me, I don't care about that.
Mhm.
I'm kid number 4, it was my job to eat what was on my plate and get in the car, so we just had to go with the flow.
Child number 4, yeah. That's probably a whole 'nother episode, Amanda, where we talk about being the 4th child and what does that mean and how does
Well,
that frame your life, right?
I don't know, you just have to be flexible to do what your client needs, and I think strong leaders have a humility because it's required.
Yeah,
We are not
that's
naturally born that way, I don't think, but um, I also am very efficiently oriented, like, I wanna get there the fastest way possible, and humility is the fastest way to get there. Just be quiet and listen, all that other stuff is just gonna get in the way of doing anything healthy, productive for anybody. So it's not natural, but it is faster.
oh, that's
We can
good.
just
That's
drop
really
it.
good.
Yeah.
That's really good right there. We all need to hear that. Appreciate you saying that. It all ties together, right? This humility, this willingness to learn, this willingness to listen, to be coachable, all these things. It's a posture. Leadership is so much about posture. And, there's people who have the posture like, I'm here, I've risen to this spot, and I know all the things, I've done all the jobs, I have all the experience, whatever. It doesn't get you very far.
Well,
And
no, it doesn't, and that's why creating habits of calming things down, not
right.
shutting things up, and we're not talking about being passive, we're just talking about being a calm voice in the room, and I do everything this high off the ground. I'm probably never the calmest one in the room, but, I'm not panicking, I'm excited because of what I'm doing that day or whatever. When something goes wrong, "Hey, settle down, little buckaroo, we're gonna eat this elephant one bite at a time. What's our first step here?" Instead of just, a big freak out that nobody knows what to do with and just is so, so awkward and unfortunate.
I love that. We are now officially going to title this episode "Settle Down, Little Buckaroo," in honor of your statement right there.
There
Our
we go.
guest today is Amanda Box, founder of Box Communications, consultant, speaker, trainer. I'm going to ask you one more question, then I want to give you a chance to not just respond to that question, but tell us a little bit about what's going on with your work. But this is a question that I would love to ask a lot of different people, or I do love to ask a lot of different people. When we work a lot with new and emerging leaders, we just feel called to help people who are stepping into these spaces. In particular, we have a passion for working with those that have been on the team who are now leading the team. They've made the jump from buddy, if you will, to boss. I think a book was written years ago about that. But so we talk to new leaders pretty regularly. What would you, based on your experience personally and professionally, what would you like to tell new leaders about what they're going to encounter as they encounter failure? Those bad days where things don't go the way they thought they would, or projects that don't go in the direction or aren't as successful as they thought. Whatever it may be that a bad day represents, what would you tell a new leader about dealing with those days that are less than expected or desired?
While it's not the most fun thing, nobody wants failure. We all want success. But have you ever noticed how overnight success comes with about 20 years behind it that we just don't know
Yeah,
about that?
yeah, yeah.
So
I don't know many overnight success stories that don't have a long, long time ago in a dark room somewhere. I was thinking about something and couldn't figure out how to do it.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Failure is just information. It's just information. Sometimes people can really they can, I think, escalate what failure means. And this one moment does not define the rest of your career or your identity or anything, except you just have to look at it as, yeah, that's not fun. I don't want to do that again. That was painful. And how we're gonna take steps with the information we have, and that is a humility, to move forward. So you just have to look at it like that, and you have to plan for that too. And that's another reason why strong communication habits are so important, because if you're shocked that you fail, I'm gonna say you're not ready to be a leader, and that's okay. We can get you there, but leadership is really service. Leadership is not just a title and power. That can be a real twisted view of leadership. Leadership is doing what needs to be done. So failure is going to be a part of it, just like failure is a part of everything else. So we just can't be shocked by that. I think you absolutely need to get a plan in place and a mentor. I like a mentor about 10 years out ahead
Mhm.
of whatever position someone's in, myself included, and they can help you through that. So your first phone call is somebody to say, "Okay, give it to me straight. What's my next move right here?" And I'll tell you this teeny little story. I was working with a government agency, and lots of people come out of the military and go into civil service. I was there on a day. There was actually the man's last day there, and you could tell by what other people were saying about him. And I'll name him, but you won't know who he is. Joe. Well, Joe is this. Well, Joe is that. I mean, he was so well respected, beloved. So again, I'm always scavenging for one more little piece of information. I said, "Okay, Joe, what's the secret sauce here?" And he said, "Just know your people. Know your people."
It's such a good word. We two things that, and as we think about moving towards the end here, two things that you just mentioned. One, the first, your husband is a very successful college baseball coach, has had a long career at a lot of prestigious institutions, and has done a lot of good things on the baseball field. So you may have heard this before. I know I didn't come up with it, but I have to remind myself often, and have had to remind myself often over the years, and others as well, that leadership and failure go together. And really, it's not about wins and losses; it's about wins and lessons,
Oh,
right?
sure.
Wins
Yes.
and lessons. And what you were just describing, potentially to a new or a young or emerging leader, is you're going to learn a lot of lessons, and you got to be willing to do that. The second thing, your story about, I think you said Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, if you're out there listening, well done. We tell people all the time that your leadership brand is the stories that people tell about you.
That's
It's
good.
not it's not the stories that you tell about you. Your brand is held in the perceptions of other people, and it comes from consistency and time in dealing with you. And people at their retirement ceremonies, people at their 80th birthday parties, when somebody's telling a story, right? It's not just that one time experience. It's over time. But it's this consistency, kind of like you when you choose where to go eat on a road trip. You're going to pull into a certain place probably more often than not based on things that you expect and that you come to just that place becomes known for in your mind, right? And that's how people are too. And so when you described that a second ago, I thought, man, what a great example of a brand, leadership brand. Probably somebody who not every day was great, but they learned lessons along the way. And overall, they probably, in this case, Joe, probably served his people well and his brand was strong.
Yeah, and I want to just make one clarification here. Joe's not saying be nicer.
Right,
And I'm not saying if you're a great communicator, you're necessarily nicer. If your communication skills are strong, you're going to be able to handle those really difficult conversations in a way where your people still want to be on your team. So it's really this capability of doing difficult things, making the tough call, which that's required. Even if I mean, we're not going to do that perfectly, and people don't expect that. Uh,
right.
but your communication skills absolutely allow that. They create a situation and a culture where you're doing the difficult things that must be done. Like, we need to have more difficult conversations, not fewer difficult conversations. And that's why those habits of credibility and just this expectation that we will have conflict and we are gonna have failure. I hope not every day.
Right.
But it's a real delusion if you think that's not gonna happen, and you're gonna crash and burn fast, especially if your identity is tied up in that.
Yeah. Well, you've been a fantastic guest today. Tell us a little bit about what are you most excited about right now with your company and your work? What are some things coming up for Box Communication?
Well, you mentioned being the unleasher of the awesome in the intro, and I have to say when you asked me, "What are you excited about?" That's what I'm excited about because when I'm going into any organization or doing executive coaching one-on-one, then I don't add anything to your resume, your experience, your IQ, any of that. What I do is teach you strong structures. I teach connection, skill, strategy so that everybody else can see the awesome. Like, you're already awesome. My job is to help you show that so authentically and sincerely to other people. So for me, when I'm seeing my clients do things on their own, it is like a Super Bowl win for me because I'm just their biggest cheerleader, and I love the stage and a microphone too. I've got a couple of keynotes coming up that I'm really excited about. I've got a museum up in New York that I'm gonna go help with customer service, and then just anybody that I can really help. That's my communication evangelist in me, that I'm always in this persuasive mode trying to help people that, "Hey, work on this first. Everything else is gonna go better with that connection strategy and skill."
That is so good. Well, you do a wonderful job. We are also blessed to have you as part of our extended family at Great Days Leadership, and we're eager to have opportunities to work with you, to learn alongside you, to learn from you. And I know that those listening to this episode will be blessed, and their work and their leadership will be benefited from your wisdom. And so we just want to say thanks for being with us today. And just know that we have learned from the bad days you've experienced, and we hope that others will as well. So thank you so much for being with us today, and we hope that you've had a good time. I know I've enjoyed listening to your stories.
Always, always. Stories are the best. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, we appreciate you so much. We thank you for listening, and we hope that beyond the bad days that emerge, we hope you have more great days in front of you.